You need to know to whom to communicate. You should communicate to the right people. Okay? And let's just start with this one. Proverbs chapter 25. You're not far from it. Turn back 2 chapters. Proverbs chapter 25. So helpful here. Verse number 9. Let's start there. Argue your case with your neighbor himself. Oh, that is so good. Argue your case with your neighbor himself. You got a problem with somebody? Talk to that person about it. You got an issue with someone? Talk to them about it. Deal with the issue. And do not reveal another's secret, because guess what? That third party doesn't know your dispute with your neighbor. Your neighbor knows about the dispute. Your neighbor knows that there's an issue between you and him, but the third party doesn't. And so you're going to go and reveal your secret conflict with your neighbor with a third party. Don't do that. The Bible says don't do that, because here's one thing. For those of you that just want to add other people to the knowledge circle so that you can, for a lot of reasons, maybe just have people agree with you, have people think that you're right, have think that your neighbor's a fool, whatever it might be, right? We often do it in Christian circles under the banner of, would you please pray for me? I'm having a problem with the person in my small group, and I just want you to know. Really, what did he do? Well, here's what he did. I can't believe he did it. I can't believe he said it. You got a problem with your neighbor, go argue your case with your neighbor himself. Because if you don't, look at verse number 10, lest he who hears you bring shame, right, will bring shame upon you, and your ill repute will have no end. What does that mean? And I know right now, think about your circles. There are people in your circles you would never tell something that is confidential to, because you know they're going to blab it. And the people that like to go to third parties to talk about their problems are people that will earn a reputation of having loose lips. They're not confidants. They're not counselors. They're not helpers, right? All they are is gossips. So you need to understand this basic principle. Letter A, here's 5 points here. You need to know whom to communicate to, directly to whom it concerns. That's the way I put it in my notes. Argue your case with the neighbor himself. Go directly to that person, to whom it, not to whom it may concern, but to whom it does concern. Who does it concern? Well, you better go deal with that person. If not, it's going to ruin your reputation. Speaking of reputations, go back to chapter 11, Proverbs chapter 11. Proverbs chapter 11. I want to get into the motives now of why you want people to pray for your conflict, why you want to tell people this. You want to warn them, because maybe the neighbor will do that to you too. You hear my facetious sarcasm there, don't you? Proverbs 11:12. Proverbs 11, verse 12. Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Okay, now, it's not about belittling to his face. It's about I'm talking to someone else about the neighbor. This is directly related to Proverbs 25. Right? I'm not arguing my case with my neighbor. I'm going to someone else and I'm belittling the person. Okay? Letter B, not to bystanders to ruin reputations. Because I guarantee 85% of the reason you go and tell someone else is to help them have the same opinion of that neighbor, that person, that member of the church. To have them share your opinion and you're torqued, you're ticked off, you don't like them. And I want them to have that. You probably think that this is not a nice person. Let me tell you why he's not a nice person. You're trying to ruin a reputation. Here's the key word in this sentence, verse 12, you belittle him. Which, by the way, right, in logic or in debate class in particular, we talk about ad hominem arguments. This happens all the time, especially when you have a tight logical argument. Someone then doesn't say, well, let's deal with the argument. They deal with you. Well, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're prideful, you're whatever, X, Y, Z. They attack you. And here, belittling a neighbor is, I'm going to go talk about this conflict I have with my neighbor, but I'm not even going to talk about the case. I'm going to talk about the person. I'm always going to disparage the person for doing what he did to make me angry. So you just need to understand that oftentimes we're talking to people and we're trying to pull down their reputation because my view of them has gone down. When the stock of someone in my mind goes down, I want everyone to evaluate that person the same way I do. And I'm just saying that's wrong. He who ever belittles his neighbor lacks sense. Well, I don't want them thinking he's a great neighbor. You don't want to move in here as a terrible neighbor. Stop. Just stop. You lack understanding. You'd remain silent if you are a man or a woman of understanding. 400 years ago, John Dryden, a British poet, wrote this little poem about the problem. Listen carefully to this. Old language, but helpful. There is a lust in us that no charm can tame. Something we really want to do. Of freely publishing our neighbor's shame. They've done something wrong. I want to tear them down. Hence on eagle's wings, like fast, immortal scandals fly. Did you hear what she did? While virtuous actions, good things they do, are born, they do them, but they die. No one talks about them. Just think of that. There's a lust in us that no charm can tame, of freely publishing our neighbor's shame. Hence on eagle's wings, immortal scandals fly, while virtuous actions are born, but die. I just think if we could just look at the things that we say about other people behind their back, how often it is not their virtues that we hail. It's their scandals, it's their problems, it's their stumbling in many ways that we just want to get out there to make sure that everyone knows why this person in my small group, or the person I took through Partners, or the person that took me through Partners, or the person that is in my sub-congregation, this is what I think of them, and I think this of them, and you should think this of them. You think too high of them. Let me tell you how you should think. Now, we'd never preface it that way, but that's what's happening. Don't share it with bystanders just to ruin their reputations. As a matter of fact, what's lacking in this, and if I were just going to dig down on this one thing, this gossip problem that is so prevalent in every community group, every community where people get together and fallen creatures, I would go to the virtue of love, because love's going to solve this all. Proverbs 17:9, just to reiterate this point. Whoever covers an offense, you've offended me, but I'm not going to talk about it to other people. He seeks love. I'd like to love this person, so I'm going to cover their offense. Love, by the way, covers a multitude of sins. That means you can sin against me a lot. Just like I hope your family members, who I know are not sinless against you, you've covered it. You don't go around telling everybody what your family members do wrong, I hope. You cover it because you seek love. But whoever repeats a matter, they want to tell everybody, separates close friends. You're friends with the person I don't like. I'd like to separate the two of you by destroying his reputation. Happens all the time. Love would be a remedy for that, but I'll leave it there. Proverbs 18. Proverbs chapter 18. Look at verses 7 and 8. 7 and 8. A fool's mouth, Proverbs 18:7, is his ruin. Right? His lips are a snare to his soul. We've already read that, but that's true. That's the problem. But then it says, the words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels. They go down into the inner parts of the body. Delicious morsel. You know what a delicious morsel is? It's a piece of chocolate cake from a bakery with a nice, shining, glistening stainless steel fork that just cuts through from top to bottom and has a lot of that creamy icing on the top that's spilling over. And it's just so moist. And it goes right in your mouth. And you know, there are things I can eat. I can eat your dumb rice cakes and your salad. And it doesn't go down here. It never even makes it down here. But that chocolate cake makes it here. And when I sit in my recliner after I eat that cake, I feel it. It goes down to my soul, man. Chocolate cake does that. And you know what? There are a lot of people, they just want to hear all the scandals. They want to hear all the problems. They want to hear all the reasons you don't like the people you don't like. They love it. There will always be an appetite for this. So I'm saying this. Don't tell these things to people, letter C, who just want to know. There are people who just want to know. Right? You can say, hey, pray for me. I got a really rough meeting going on Wednesday afternoon. Really? What is it? Shove that chocolate cake into my ear and let it go down into my soul. I can't wait to hear the dirt on him. I can't, she said that? Oh, I'll write it in my prayer journal now. That's amazing. I can't believe it. Oh, she's chewing that up big time. She loves that. There's icing all over her earlobes, just dripping down. Tell me more gossip. You're always going to find people that want to hear the dirt. Always. Always. And it may be hard for you to resist the chocolate cake, to say, nope, don't want to hear it. Go argue your case with your neighbor yourself. You go do that. Argue your case with him. You go do that. Well, I just wanted you to pray. I'll pray. God knows the details. I'll pray. Not to people who just want to know. Plenty of people just want to know. Now, there's a nuanced distinction between the next two, right? Letter C was, don't tell it to people who just want to know. Go to Proverbs 16, back 2 chapters. There's another reason I think people want to know, not just because they're curious, because C is curiosity. Letter D here, this is something else. Look at verses 27 and 28. A worthless man plots evil. His speech is like scorching fire. A dishonest man spreads strife. And there's a lot of dishonesty when it's like, well, I'd just like to pray for you. Tell me more. I'd just like to help you through this. Tell me more. And a whisperer separates close friends. There it is again. There's a separation of friends. Friend circles are destroyed by people talking. But here, it's the dishonesty of someone acting like they like you, like they're all going to be friends, but they're not. They have violence in their hearts, relational violence. They have scorching fire that's ready to come out. Just feed the fire of my discussion. I would like to do that and kind of add my voice to all of this and commiserate with you. And it becomes a set of discussions that you have that allows people that already have a penchant for not liking everybody. And you know people like that? They just don't like anybody. And you know why people don't like everybody around them? Because they want to like themselves the most. Trust me on this one. People that are critical of everyone but themselves and occasionally throw in some critical remark about themselves. By the way, try just parroting what they said in their critical statement about themselves. See how that goes down. I know I'm a step removed, but those people that just love to be critical of everyone, okay? I just say this, don't share it with people looking for reasons to dislike. And there are several people in your circles that just like to dislike everyone. Why? Because they're on a campaign to like themselves the most. They're running for mayor of their own little heart. And they want to be the king. And they don't want anyone around them to be better than them. And so all they want to do is dislike people. Give me another reason to dislike them. Give me another reason to dislike her. I just like to know. There are people that just have a mouth of scorching fire, and they're dishonest people. They act like they're in a friend circle, but they're not. They're just trying to find out where the pecking order is, and they want to make sure they come out on top. Do you know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about, right? Sad thing is it could be you, could be me. We've got to make sure it's not. Don't be sharing stuff with people that just want a reason to dislike. How about Proverbs 26? Proverbs chapter 26. One more, letter E. Are you with me on this? Know whom to communicate to. Well, directly to those whom it concerns, right? Not may concern, but does concern. Not to bystanders to ruin reputations. Not to people who just want to know. Not to people looking for a reason to dislike. One more. Proverbs 26, verse 20. We'll do actually this whole section here. Repeats another line that we had earlier. Proverbs 26:20. For lack of wood, the fire goes out. Duh, right? You don't put any wood on the fire at the beach. You go to the beach tonight, start a bonfire in the circle, and eventually it'll go out. Depending on the firewood you have, go out right away, but you got to keep putting stuff on it to keep the fire going. So it is with conflict and quarrels. Where there is no whisperer, right? Quarreling cease. Now, whisper is a great dynamic word that shows how people speak when they're not speaking to the person about the problem. Right? You're going to argue your case with the neighbor. Guess what? You're going to keep the same volume you have. Right? And I'd like it to be the same volume. Don't elevate the volume. Just speak to your neighbor about the problem. But when you're telling a third party about the problem, the voice goes down. Did you know my problem with my neighbor? That's whispering. That's the person that wants to share information with people they shouldn't share it with. Right? So the whisperer, the gossip, as some old translations put it, right? If you don't have gossips, you don't have the quarrel lasting very long. It's over with. As charcoal to hot embers and wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome man for kindling strife. You want a church filled with strife? You got to have gossips. You have to. Right? Without that, you're never going to have the conflict in the church. It won't last very long. It'll be person to person. A person will argue his neighbor, argue his case with his neighbor, himself, and it'll deal with it, and it'll be passed. It'll be over. But the damage is done as it's shared. And the quarrelsome man, he wouldn't admit he's a quarrelsome man, but he loves to get in the dirt, whether he likes to dislike people, maybe his curiosity just drags him into it. Nevertheless, you got to have people like that. Why? Because there's always a market for it. Here it is again, verse 22, different chapter, but here it is. The words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels. They go down to the innermost parts of the body. They love to hear this stuff. But in this case, it's to keep the conflict going. Jot it down that way, letter E. Don't tell people that just want to keep the conflict going. There are some people that when there's peace, they don't like peace. When's the next crisis? I hope there's something big in the news today so I can get all worked up about it. We would be bored, right, with just good news. Well, that's the problem with someone who has a penchant, an appetite, a desire to say, what's the next thing? We got to move on to the next scandal. That's a perverse interest in conflict. That's what the Bible calls a quarrelsome person, a quarrelsome man. Know to whom you should communicate. And the real key here is letter A, directly to whom it concerns. Not bystanders who want to ruin reputations, not people who just want to know, the curious, not to people that are looking for a reason to dislike, they're hypercritical, not to people who just want to keep the conflict going because they love the drama. Now, back in our passage, we haven't even got out of verse 17 yet. Verse 17, then, he's got the right people at the right time, and then he's got the right things to say. He gathered them together. He said, brothers, I've done nothing against our people, and on he goes. Now, his category of speech here is he's going to try to say why he's there. Why is this seminary grad, this Jewish leader who was on his way to the Sanhedrin, the ruling class, the Supreme Court of Israel, why is he in prison and a part of this sect? He's going to start to explain all that. He's going to give an answer. But we need to know when we're going to communicate what we're supposed to communicate. What kinds of, when is it the right time, the best time? When does heaven go, thumbs up? This mouth is barking at the right time, okay?